Hi, I'm John. Welcome to Edgetone Studios. Today in the studio, I'm talking to you about how to integrate external hardware with your Studiolive mixer if you use a Studiolive mixer in your studio. And for the first thing I'm going to show, I've got my trusty G&L Kiloton 4-string bass. This is not a custom shop. It's just a, what do they call them? Option order. Trying to get the headstock in there. People don't like these headstocks. They don't like this bump. I don't know why. It's not that big of a deal. I ordered a custom shop one without the bump, so even I kind of prefer not to have them. But man, do people ever get up in arms about them? Anyways, I've got a Studiolive mixer. Let me switch cameras here in the studio here, and this mixer is the 32S. And one of the ways you can easily integrate hardware is just at the input. So on the back of this unit, there are 16 XLR inputs and 16 combo jacks, and those combo jacks can take a line input. So I've got a whole bunch of external preamps here. Let me get rid of the inset. So I've got basically 10 external preamps here going into, as you can see, channels 19 through 28. And channels 17 and 18 are just below here. I have a couple Newton channel from Rupert Neves as my kind of pristine main channel strips. So I've plugged this kiloton bass into channel 1 here, and as I turn up my volume, you'll see that I can get sound through this preamp into the channel that I'm using on the mixer, which, as you can see, there is channel 20, and I've got channel 20 selected so that we can see the input, and by adjusting the gain, I can get it where I want for recording. And because I'm using an external pre, and this pre has this mojo setting, this basically is a harmonic, I'll turn it so you can see, harmonic distortion. Thumb side tends to be better for bass and drums, kick drum, and cream is better for, say, vocals, guitar. But, you know, I can easily have access to changing my sounds on the fly just by reaching for a knob, using external gear that I want. And that's the simplest way. And because I have a patch bay here, I could also patch in a compressor or an equalizer or any amount of external hardware while I'm tracking before it hits the mixer. So that's the straight up simplest way to use your Studiolive with external hardware. But what if you want to use external hardware after the input? There's a couple ways to do that. The first one would be still while tracking. For this, I'm going to use my Yamaha SPX9E. It's one of the few external pieces of hardware I have, and it's because there's no great emulation out there for the symphonic chorus that comes in the 80s Yamaha SPX9E digital reverb unit. So here I'm going to use the auxiliary 7 as a send, or mix 7, and I'm going to put that into the SPX9E in. It's a mono in, so that's easy enough. And then I'll take the XPS90 out, and I'm going to put that into line 23, and I'm going to put line 24 coming from out on the right. Okay, so I've got my bass still going through mic 20 through the Camden 500 preamp, and basically we're listening to, or we're watching mix 1516 here because that's what's feeding into OBS, which is recording this right now. So that's why you're seeing 15, 16. So now that I've patched those things in, I can go to mix number 7. So I go to mix number 7, and as I dial up this, this mix 20 fader, we should start seeing an input coming into the SPX90, and there you can see it. So if I switch back to mix 15, 16, which is what you guys should be listening to, I unmute 23, 24. I believe I've already stereo linked them because this is a stereo output from a mono input on the SPX90. And as I bring up the level here, you should be able to hear it in your mix. Okay, so now if I'm playing, it's kind of hard to do both at once. We're getting the reverse gate. So let's switch that to something a little bit more useful. Tremolo, we call that. So there, by simply setting up an auxiliary output, using the send on that to send to the external piece of hardware right there, and then bringing that auxiliary back into 2 channels on the board, and then bringing up those levels of those channels, you have basically inserted external hardware into the mixer and now can track live with that or jam with that and record that. And you could record these 2 tracks separate from your main input and have the effects. So what about if you want to use this with your DAW, in my case Studio One, and insert a hardware effect with the DAW? So let's look at that next. Okay, in order to show you Studio One and integration with the hardware, I had to put headphones on so I can hear what you're hearing for the demonstration. So let's switch over to Studio One, and I'll get the mixer up here to start. So I've got a simple beat here with Impact XT. I spelled impact wrong apparently. Just turn that down a bit. Okay, so let's go into settings here, and in this case I'll bring up the inputs and outputs. I've already predefined for my studio my mic inputs. So there's 23, 24, which is where the SPX90 was coming back on. And for outputs, I just added a new one here. I added a mono channel for channel 20, and I made that be assigned to channel 20 as it should be. And then I just hit OK, and now I have that available. Now, if I go to channel 20, what I've done here, normally it's on analog, so I switched to USB. And if I now send this snare, for example, to channel 20 and bring the volume down, we don't have it coming through because it's not going to the main output. It's coming to the mixer directly and can be mixed live. So that's kind of how you can integrate your mix with your mixer. But we want to go a level beyond that. We want to now send that to the SPX90, which you can see over here, and we want to bring it back on channels 23 and 24. So again, we're using mix 7 here, and I've already got some levels going. So once we get this going, if we look at the SPX90, we'll see we're getting level there. And coming back to the mixer, if we go to the mix we're listening to and start bringing up 23 and 24, we're hearing the early Reflection 1 type hall. We could switch to something different like a room reverb. And we can mix on the board itself. But that's not what we want to do. We want to integrate this into the actual song we'd be working on. So rather than do it this way and just directly send the channel and route it through the board, we're still going to route it through the board, but we're going to do it as an insert. And what you use for that is what's called pipeline, either mono or stereo. Now this is a mono in, stereo out effect, so we'll use stereo. And we set the, basically you have an input, an output, and a little graph showing what's going on in orange and in blue. And the input here is going to be channel 20. And if you hadn't set up channel 20, you can do your I/O setup direct right there if you need to. We're going to have the output be to 2324. And on the mixer, we don't want to be hearing 2324 here because we're going to be sending it through mix number 7 out. So this is the level we need. So channel 20 in pipeline is coming into this, going out auxiliary 7. When the auxiliary output of 7 is plugged in the SPX90, the SPX90 is returning on 23 and 24. We don't need the levels on the board here because it's going to happen directly in the software. And to check, you can hit the setup mode and hit auto, and it should send a signal through for you to hear whether it's working. And you'll notice it's not. And I spent maybe an hour trying to figure out why I could not get any effect going on here. And the answer is quite simple. It's because Impact is kind of subrouting its individual channels inside itself as a virtual instrument, and it's not acting as full audio here. So the simple solution is to get this out of here for now, go to the track and transform it to an audio track, or if you already had audio tracks, this will work already. So now that's bouncing that down to a bunch of audio tracks, 6 audio tracks, 7, 8 audio tracks, but we only need the first 3 because that's where anything is. And now we can insert pipeline again. And I forgot to save that as a preset, but I should have. We're coming back on 2324. We can say SPX90. And if we hit auto here, you see it does a little pulse and then records the return on the pulse and estimates how many samples it needs to offset the signal by to get it to work. So now when we press play, we still don't hear it because this wrench is on. So after you've hit auto, you're back in setup mode. You want to be out of setup mode. Okay, now we've got it working through pipeline, and then you can adjust your levels both using the mixer. So the amount I want to send to the SPX90 is here, and I can see if I go to the SPX90, I turn that up too much, or we're going to crank it too hard. And secondly, you can set your send level here and adjust this to be at an optimal level for whatever you're sending. So send. And now you've inserted a hardware effect. And you may find, depending on how your buffers are and how things are set up, that it's not fully in alignment, and there's a chance here to offset that. So this was 1604. If I set that to 1500, we'll get a different offset on the processing. And you can put this at 0 and have no offset, and it should be completely out. Actually, it doesn't sound too bad. I'm not sure it detected this very well. Let's auto again. Yeah, it's saying 1604. Take off that wrench, and then now you're able to go through your external effect and choose different presets. Parametric EQ. Not sure you can read these because my hand's in the way. Reverb and a gate. Whatever you want to do for your actual effect. So that's how you would integrate it. You could do it directly by sending it as an output, basically assigning that track to go right through the mixer, and then use your mixer to get to an external effect. Or better yet, use pipeline stereo, because now you still have full control over the volume here, including the effect from your built-in mixer. Now, interestingly, we're still hearing it here, and that's because I probably have the mixer still on the. So I'm not sure why it's still playing the insert when the volume is down on that channel. So let's try something here. Let's make pipeline stereo be actually a send. So by dragging it down, it created a send. I'll remove it from here. Did it create a send? Nope. Oh yes, right here. I just messed that up. Pipeline stereo is now a send. Let's move it over to the side here. Okay, so now let's get rid of this one. So this is just the effect over here. And now you can control both volumes. I'm not sure why it's not working properly as an inset. Maybe somebody watching will understand that, but at least then you can also fully mix your effect, your hardware effect over here, and have full balance of the both of them fading in and out together. Okay, so the second way that we can get the audio out of Studio One and into our external hardware is through interface mode. Now with interface mode, the issue is that as you go into interface mode, you lose all these layers. So mix 1314 is that, my headphone mix is this. When we go into interface mode, this won't exist anymore. So I've reset my OBS so that I'm recording the mains out and I'm wearing headphones now. So I'll go back to the main mix here. So we go to home, choose system, choose interface mode right there. It says it was off. Do I want to continue? Yes. Give it a second. It's gone into interface mode now, and now you'll see when you try to go to another mix, it says interface mode not currently available. So any audio that we send from USB to one of the auxiliary outputs goes directly out the back of the mixer now, just like a standard rack mount interface. If you have some outputs on the back you want to send to the outputs, it goes straight to the outputs. Without doing this, we need to dedicate a channel to, as we did before, like mic 20, to go into one of the auxiliary mixes. In our case, we were using mix 7, which is the same one we're going to use for the aux out, and then send that to the hardware. So, okay, in Studio One, we have to go back into settings, and I need to create output for mix 7. So mix 7, I'll name it mix 7. And it turns out that this is output 45. So that's 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So mix 1 is 39, and then they go up from there. On the inputs into Studio One, the auxiliary mixes start at 41 instead of 39. So I'd previously thought it was channel 47, but it's actually 45. So it explains to me why I couldn't get it working for some time. Okay, so once I've got that set, once again, I can insert pipeline stereo. And now this time I'll choose mix 7. Choose my return as 2324. So let's go to so you can see the mixer as well. And if I switch over to the SPX90, once I start playing, well, we're hearing it already. It's coming right through. So we can see the level coming up on the external hardware. It's being returned. I didn't do the offset now. Now, without going through the bus, we'll see if the offset's very much different. I think it was 1604 before, so hit auto here. Quite a bit less. So there's less processing going on through the board. So it should be a little bit more responsive now. Whoops, got to take off the wrench again. And then I can adjust my return level here and mix between the initial sound and the external sound. Now you could still do this as an FX send, put pipeline stereo on the effect, which is a more typical way to do any effect in your mixing process. But this, once again, gives you the ability to change settings here. So let's go vibrato. Let's see how that's a. So again, you can integrate that way. So another way to bring hardware into the mix when you want to work with external hardware with your Studio One. I think it's fantastic that you can do this. It's a bit awkward. What I would really love Presonus to do is allow me to have interface mode on selected auxiliaries. I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4 for my headphone mixes, 15, 16s for my OBS send, have those be full auxiliaries, and then have 5 through 14 as just straight out the back of the interface without any mixing, so I can use it for integrating hardware directly this way rather than having to tie up a channel to get audio back from Studio One into the board, then out the auxiliary input. Well, that's pretty well it. You can integrate hardware with your Studio Live Mixer with Studio One if you've set it up in advance, as I have not. I've sort of had the SPX9E sitting here for a while, kind of wondering what channels I want to dedicate to it, because I'm using all my channels, all 32 channels on my mixer, for other things, including the 3 stereo auxiliary inputs, the tape and the 2 auxiliaries. So I don't have it dedicated at the moment. I wish I had about 4 more channels. Four more channels. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope that was useful to you. Check out my band, Waveform Mountain. Our debut album, Processing, is out now. I'm going to keep advertising it on this channel because I'm my own advertising for myself. And, you know, it's pretty good. I will say so myself. It's pretty good. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.